Well, it's all in your head, he says. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid claims that all the bad stories that Americans are telling about their experience with Obamacare so far are just simply false.
There's plenty of horror stories being told. All of them are untrue, but they're being told all over America. Stories made up from whole cloth, lies distorted by the Republicans to grab headlines or make political advertisements.
Really? So Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says that Democrats, he believes, will do anything to defend Obamacare, including that. Watch.
They're desperate because every single one of them provided the vote that passed Obamacare. It's been a disaster for the country, and they're afraid they're going to pay the price for it this November.
South Dakota Republican John Thune is on the Senate Finance Committee, and he chairs the Senate Republican Conference. Senator, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you with us this morning.
Good morning, Martha. Nice to be with you.
Good morning. What was your reaction when you heard what Harry Reid said?
It was pretty astonishing to have the majority leader, the Democratic leader of the United States Senate, get up on the floor of the United States Senate and call Americans liars. I mean, it was offensive to me and the people that I represent, and I think it was an insult to hardworking people all across the country who are suffering as a consequence of this bad law.
Why do you think he said it?
Well, I think they're very frustrated. They are getting all these, bad stories coming in. You got millions of people who've had their coverage canceled. You've had millions of people who've seen premiums go up, millions of people who've lost their doctor, and more recently, just this last week, the Medicare Advantage program, now millions of seniors who are having stories coming out about premiums going up and losing coverage. So it's a really bad story, and I think they'd like to just live in denial or something. But the reality is there are Americans all across this country who are suffering as a result of this law, and they're sharing those stories. I mean, we get them in our office on a regular basis. I think every senator does, which is why it is so such hard to explain why Harry Reid would go on the floor of the United States Senate and say what he did. It's an insult to millions of Americans.
I mean, you've got 6.3 million Americans who've lost the insurance policy that they had. The latest poll numbers for the president show that 59% of people are disappointed in the Obama presidency, and we know that one of the major pieces of legislation, if not the major, is Obamacare, so it has to be representing a big chunk of that. I mean, it strikes me as politically not wise to alienate half the country, essentially.
Yeah, it's completely tone deaf, and these guys are trying to turn a deaf ear and a blind eye to what's happening across the country. But I think the question should be for other Democrat senators, do you agree with your leader? And if you don't, why are you not out there defending your constituents and sticking up for them? Because this really does insult people all across this country. And the majority leader in the Senate really owes millions of Americans an apology for what he said. He tried to walk it back a little bit later in the day, but the truth is that statement is out there. And I think it just shows the hubris in Washington, D.C. and why people across this country are so cynical about politics generally, but about big government solutions to problems in this country. I think the Democrats in the Senate believe this is the perfect solution. How could American people not like it? How could they have these stories of all the harm that's being caused? But they're out there. These impacts are real. They're being experienced by the American people. And I think the Democrats here in Washington would just like to ignore it and try and suggest that it didn't happen.
Yeah, you can kind of hear the engines revving up for the midterm arguments on this, because Democrats obviously know this is going to be a tough situation, a tough issue for them in those elections. And we heard Harry Reid reference the Koch brothers and say that, they were to blame in putting out these stories that he claims are false, that, it's essentially propaganda. That's not the word he used, but it was what he suggested. And then you have this statement from President Obama yesterday as well. Let's get your reaction to this.
If you reach out to your Republican friend who can't stand Obama, but is basically a nice person, and they just they watch the wrong newscast, or the work you're doing is God's work. It is hard work.
What's your reaction to that?
Well, again, I think the president's approval ratings are sagging, and he's looking for somebody to blame. Just like the Senate Democrats here in Washington, just like Harry Reid, they want to blame somebody else for all these stories that are coming in from the people across this country about the bad impacts of their law. I mean, they've got a sluggish economy, chronic high unemployment, massive amounts of debts piled on, and now a lot of people who have had their insurance canceled, have seen their premiums and their deductibles go up, have lost their doctor. This is a bad story, a bad narrative for Democrats generally, and I think the president is looking to blame the media, to blame Fox News, to blame Republicans, and according to Reid, I guess, all these people across the country who are now making these things up. But they're looking for anything that would distract from the issues that the American people care deeply about, and I think that the Democrats are going to have to answer for this year as they run up to these midterm elections.
They're definitely trying to claim the moral high ground and say that Republicans and conservatives and people who are against this policy are on the other end of that spectrum. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Senator, it's always nice to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Martha.
We'll see you next time.